Hi, this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and today I'm going to be covering a game from the ChessTweets library. So it's a game that ended about 6 months ago between Olit 3 and the ChessTweets community playing black. So go ahead and get on with it here. So Olit 3 starts out with d4, and now we're going into a queen's gambit. And I was keeping up with, I checked on the commentary a little bit of the game, and queen b3 is definitely not a standard move here, but he said that he wanted to mix up the move order a little bit and kind of throw black off their normal lines. So, it happens a little bit. Sometimes it works out well, sometimes not so much. So now here for black, he's entered the Slav variation, which is characterized by a pawn on d5, supported by c6 and e6, and usually a knight on f6 as well. And the Slav is it's been around forever. It's a very solid opening, and sometimes gets very complicated. So in this line, we're seeing pretty standard development, nothing too crazy so far, and now queen b6. And so pretty much both sides are trying to fight for control of the center squares, e4, d5, d4, e4, d5, e5, the center squares. I mean, that's what the opening's all about. And on a basic level, you just want to fight for control of those squares and develop your pieces naturally. So that's what both sides are doing in this opening. So queen b6 now, to put a little more pressure on d4 and maybe challenge white's queen on b3. And here white, I thought this was a pretty dubious move, playing queen c2. You never want to move a piece twice in the opening unless you gain, there's obvious reason why. And I didn't see a reason here. And then black played queen c7, so this is the same problem. I just don't understand why. I mean, why not just maybe rook d8 is possible? I would probably play d takes c4, bishop takes c4, and immediately c5. And black is just liberate your game and maybe take advantage of white putting that queen on c2 somehow, moving it twice. So that's what I would do. I would just immediately try to open the game up. But queen c7, okay, that sure, that's all right. And now d takes c4, bishop takes c4, and b5. So now the game is entering a semi-Slav as black is exchanged on c4. And after a6, just a quick note, if bishop b7, knight takes b5. And you're just going to be winning a pawn there. So a6, and now e4. And e4 makes sense. There's a threat here of e5, and bishop takes h7. So black has to be a little bit careful. And so he counters this with c5. And after e5, you see c4, because obviously if black moves that knight, white's going to take on h7. So black played c4, and pretty simple tactical idea, and now takes. And after takes, and let's say knight takes, black has certainly equalized here, and that trade of pieces, black maybe, I'd prefer black. I think he's slightly better. So instead, white played bishop e2, and after knight d5, takes, and pawn takes. And so what are we seeing? Well, black has got, the situation has changed a little bit in the center, and black's plan is going to be to simply create a passed pawn on the c file, and try to create counterplay on the queen side. And white's plan is going to be pretty simple. Now that this pawn has moved to d5, it makes it easier if he can play something like knight g5, for example, and push the f pawn. So black is going to be playing on the queen side, white on the king side. So knight g5 is just good, is good awareness here. Just go ahead and jump right into it. Also, nice little mate threat if black isn't paying attention. And after bishop takes, definitely I think it's the best move. g6 just invites f4 or h4 and also f4. So g6 kind of opening up a weakness. So yeah, I like bishop takes g5. And after f6, I'm not really sure what. Okay, so bishop f3, a nice little intermediate move to put some pressure, which is quickly resolved by bishop b7. I don't really know what happened here. White just sacrificed a pawn. I don't know what was so bad about playing just taking on f6, and it's a roughly equal game. I would prefer white, most likely, because he's got the two bishops. However, black does have the possibility of creating a passed pawn on the queen side, and white doesn't really have any attacking chances. So I'd say roughly equal. Maybe knight takes f6. The knight's going to come to e4, and certainly, yeah, I'd say a roughly equal position. But instead, white just sacked a pawn with bishop e3. And at first glance, I thought maybe he's going to get it back, opening up the, but it doesn't quite work. Just queen takes e5, and it's just a pawn sacrifice. So I didn't quite understand queen c3. Bishop e3, really. That just giving up a pawn, you got to be careful with that. So now e4 and bishop g4 makes sense. So it was slightly more active than bishop e2. Knight f6 and bishop e2. Anyway, so I thought he was going to come back to bishop h3. That was the idea, to put the bishop on a more active diagonal, but he wanted to go to bishop e2. And so now bishop c8, and black is getting an attack now. Maybe he's planning bishop g4. And let's just say something, bishop g4, and trying to set up some mate threats. And white's got to be careful here. I mean, black has got not a super dangerous attack, but after a move queen f7 perhaps. And yeah, I mean, he's definitely creating some threats. Possibly h5. There's a variety of moves here. So I do like that plan with bishop c8, transfer it to a better diagonal. Wasn't really doing too much on b7. And h3 is a attentive move to prevent coming in, infiltrating right there. And so now a4. So okay, black created a little threat with bishop c8, moved it to a better diagonal. Now it's time to roll the queenside pawns. And bishop g5. So okay, he wants to get a little active, and that certainly makes sense. Maybe I would have preferred a3 just to impede the pawn advance. Possibly queen d2 to play bishop f4. So just thoughts, food for thought. But bishop g5 and now b4 and queen d2 and rook a6. Definitely like the rook lift here. Very nice move to regroup. If bishop takes, you can play rook takes. So rook a6, definitely a good move. And queen e3. And now rook c6, so it looks like black is really getting ready to rock and roll with that passed c-pawn. And he goes ahead and does it. Now, there is something to be said, and you see this a lot in Super Grandmaster games. Probably a Super GM, I'm just, it's always about the patience. There's no need to go ahead and rush with c3, because that bishop on c8 is going to be in the way. So why not just play bishop f5 maybe? Bishop to g6, moves like h6, move the other rook over, possibly the other rook goes to b8 actually. Something like that. So a little bit of patience goes a long way. I just don't see any reason to just go ahead and play c3, complicate the game, and it seems to just lose a pawn. Not quite. Now with c2, the intermediate move, and rook d2, and okay, so that's what black had prepared to combat bishop b5. And now bishop f4, a nice intermediate move as well. And it just, maybe is there some other way out of this? I mean, I don't see it. So bishop f4 is force a trade. Bishop takes c7, and I think black had to play rook a3 in this position to avoid the loss of a pawn. And so with rook c3, bishop takes a5, and now e3. The game's certainly getting a little unclear, but it seems like white should be coming out of this with a winning advantage. I think you just, okay, so the idea was if pawn takes, bishop f5, and black holds on. So black was playing pretty energetically. e3 is definitely a nice move, and I don't know. I mean, here it seemed like bishop f5 was just calling. It seemed like the move, but after takes, and rook e3, and I believe the game ended in a draw here, although it seems like white maybe has enough to win with a move like a4. So, an interesting game. I guess they agreed to a draw, a friendly match on ChessTweets. So, this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and thanks for tuning in.